Hi, I'm Patty.
I'm Kim Michelle.
And I'm Jill. Welcome to our podcast. It's a great day to talk.
Because honestly, what day isn't a great day to talk?
So join us in our conversation.
A Great Day to Talk is brought to you by St. George Design, offering complete website design, social media management, search engine optimization, Google and Facebook ad management, and many other digital and print marketing services. stgeorgedesign.com. And by Richardson Brothers Custom Homes, third-generation builders who have been building custom homes in southern Utah for over 25 years. They will take your dream home from concept to completion. Contact richardsonbrothers.com. The April Gates Group and Zion Canyon Real Estate have been specializing in helping Southern Utah clients buy and sell property for over 18 years. We can help you too. Call or text April today, 435-632-8869, 435-632-8869.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to A Great Day to Talk. I'm Kim Michelle, and I'm here with my wonderful, fantastic, and fabulous friends, Miss Patty Richardson.
Yes, hello. I'm trying to get it to share.
And our dear friend, Miss Jill Burkett.
Hello.
We missed last time so much, but we sure enjoyed having Marnie here, which I know is a great friend of yours.
Is amazing. I can't wait to go back next week.
Yeah, it was amazing. So if you missed that podcast, now's a perfect time to go back and take a listen on how to really enjoy and employ some self-care, but not just because it feels good. It feels good, but because it actually allows you to show up more in the space that you want to show up in.
It actually is.
Yeah.
But
it is also
medicinal.
Feels fabulous.
Wow.
Right? Yeah.
I'm telling you what, I had to go in there last week when I got back from my conference, and I had the knot. She said it was like a 6-inch knot in my trapezoid of my shoulder. Am I too loud?
Yeah.
Yeah, I am too loud.
Well, didn't
I thought you were shaking.
you went?
Like,
you went the day before Thanksgiving, and I went the morning before Thanksgiving.
Yeah. And
I didn't go at all.
Oh,
I got to get on that bandwagon a little bit more. I know I got to
get on the schedule.
I know that's the key.
She definitely knows what to do and how to do it, and I just honestly, it's been part of my self-care.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, everybody uses that phrase now. It's like, are you doing your self-care? Are you taking care of yourself, kind of thing? But this really is. Since my surgery,
on your rotator cuff.
On my rotator cuff, even before that, after my last surgery, I started going to see Marnie and have tried to make sure that I go in like once a month. And people will say, "Oh, that's so frivolous," and it's like, no, my structure, my muscles, the knots in my neck, my headaches, all of those things. It's taking care of myself. It really, really is.
Yeah.
Not to mention the fact that it just does my mental state such a good thing too. But it's my physicality. The older I get, well, I'm not getting older.
I wouldn't know anything about that being the oldest person on this podcast.
Well,
yeah.
Well, you're the one that said that, not us.
Well, it's obvious. It goes without saying.
Yeah.
And I would say, I think that's one of the things that's so great about that kind of service is that it's more of a holistic, you can do individual things, but that type of service in particular will treat the entirety of you.
Yes.
And so I just was so thrilled to have her here, and we missed you, of
I
course.
missed you guys.
We know how much you love her, and
I
she
do.
loves you.
She's fabulous.
And my only thing would be, if you have had a massage and you didn't feel those kinds of things, I would just encourage you to keep going until you find somebody who helps you feel that way.
Yeah.
Because she's a master. She's not the only master, but there are some who are going to provide you more than others, and you deserve to find the one who's really going to provide all of that.
Right.
So.
And it's so, this is cliche. I tell my students, don't use this in your writing. In today's world,
Yeah.
It is so important. And I'm here to tell you, we know it is
In today's world.
in today's world, in the life, in the rat maze that we run through.
Yeah.
It is, if we're going to continue running, we have to create a place where at least our physicality allows us to run.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree
So-
with that. So we're thrilled to have Miss Jill back. And
Thank you, my
actually, she
friends.
was gone because she was at a convention. And so one of the things that I think is a grounding space for all of us is a belief in continually challenging and growing yourself so that you don't become stagnant, so that you can still find joy in the process of learning and knowledge and something new and something you haven't heard of, or reinforcement of something you already believe to be true. And maybe it had gotten lost in the chaos of what is your life, and then it speaks back to you again. So one, I acknowledge you for that continuing education and seeking it out. And we also wanted to, Patty and I wanted to give you a moment to just talk about the experience of being in that conference from both a professional level, but also a personal level. And then, you know, we're book lovers. And when we first started the podcast, we had a book a month and we talked about it. And then a lot of people weren't reading the book. And so we're like, maybe we will move away from that. But whether you choose to read the book or not, I think that's kind of on you. I think we still get to provide the recommendation, and we haven't done that for a while. So we're going to make a recommendation this month for you to take a look at. So I'm really excited about that. The truth is, if I stopped doing everything because my students in my classroom aren't doing it, then we'd only be asking to go to the bathroom and
Getting a drink of water.
Getting a drink of water. That's what my class would consist
And can we
of.
leave early today?
Yeah, is that possible? Can I leave early? I missed the last week. Did we do anything while I was gone?
No.
Am I gonna?
We
I'm
waited
gonna miss
around.
next class. Is there
We
anything
only
important?
did. Nope. We only are doing bathroom breaks. Can I get a drink of water and leaving early? That's it. That's all we're doing.
I miss laughing with you guys.
Well, Kim Michelle, I was going to say, you know, whether or not people read the books that we talk about, they get to hear about the book.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes we talk about different themes
Yeah.
that were present in the book. And so I think that even gives the
I
listeners.
do too. We're bringing that back. So a big holla if you want us to bring it back, and silence if you don't. And then we're bringing it back anyway. Holla. Okay.
Sean, is there any chance to get Facebook comments?
I'm working on it.
Okay.
You see this little blue line that's bouncing back and forth?
It's
Oh,
loading.
it's trying to
It's
load.
loading.
Trying to
It's
load.
loading.
Nobody else can see it except me, and I've clicked on it for like the last 2
Well,
minutes
we
waiting.
could see it over here.
Yeah.
I'm
We
working
watched
on
It's
it.
okay.
I'm
It's
working-
okay. Thank you.
It's a thing.
Is
Yeah,
it great?
It's a thing.
I got to contact customer support.
We never have technology problems in our
No.
classrooms, so I do
Or our
not know
homes.
what you're talking about, Mr. Professional over there. Okay,
Did I miss
so
Did I miss anything while I was gone?
No.
no, not a
Nada,
thing,
nada.
not a thing. Did you
So-
need to go to the bathroom or get a drink? Since you've just only been in here my class for like
And
30
what are we
seconds.
gonna miss? Are we gonna miss something
Nothing.
important?
Not miss a thing. Won't miss a single solitary thing.
No. We just sit and wait. We just wait for you.
I know I do say that sometimes, which I know I should not, but I cannot help myself. When a student's been gone for like a week or 2 weeks, did we do anything?
Oh my gosh.
No,
No,
we
no,
didn't.
I
We
passed out
just
coloring
waited,
sheets.
waited for you to come back. That's all we could. That
With
anticipation
bated
kept
breath.
us going.
We waited
Yeah.
with bated breath, my
Yeah.
friend.
Exactly. I know
Right.
that I'm not supposed to do. I can't help. I just can't. Help.
It's hard to not be sarcastic.
Well,
So,
that's why
Jill,
we
Yeah.
teach seniors.
Tell us about the
They
National
love it, right?
Teachers
Seniors
of
do.
English Conference, the NCTE,
Yeah.
or National
NC,
Council of
yes,
Teachers of
National
English.
Council of Teachers of English, and this is kind of the gold. Not kind of. This is one of the gold standard conferences for teachers of English at all grade levels, all the way through university level. And I've been to it several times. This is the first time I've been in several years. I've tried to, with my principal, tried to get us there, my department there, in the last couple of years, but because of the Rona, this is the first year that it's been live again. And wow, all I can say is that I was with my people,
Yeah.
and besides my people right here, right?
Yeah.
Just with your other people.
Just with my other
Yeah.
people. A conference, thousands and thousands of people that I didn't know but knew. And the speakers, the keynote speakers, they had a keynote in the morning, they had a keynote in the afternoon, and then all of the workshops during the day. And not to mention the hundreds of authors that were there, young adult literature authors that were there to sign autographs and share their new pieces of writing and some of their old pieces of writing. And just, I mean, come on, let's just face it. As an English teacher, I'm pretty much a fangirl of authors. So.
Yeah.
Yes, and you posted
That's
a bunch
gonna
of
be
your
her.
fangirl.
That's gonna be her book, Fangirl
Fangirl
of Authors. Yeah,
And just met and re-met some authors that I've met in the past. There's one author named Ellen Hopkins, and she writes some powerful young adult lit that she writes in prose, and it's hard. It's hard-hitting reading, and it's hard for people in our community because not a lot of people in our community are faced with the challenges of the things that she writes about. And so when
we don't acknowledge we're faced with the challenges.
That's really more the honest truth. So when I met her in New York City several years ago at the conference, she signed one of her new books for me, and we had just such an amazing conversation. Well, she was at the conference again. One of my students right now is reading her book, one of her books. She said, Mrs. Burkett, can I go down and pick out a new book? Because I have my kids read for the first 15 minutes of every class period. So she went down and found this book and came back, and I saw who it was. And I was like, oh my gosh, honey, oh my gosh. You've got to hear about this. So we started talking about this conversation I had with this author. And the student was, probably already 2/3 of the way through the book, maybe halfway through the book, and was just in love with her. So when I was there, I re-met Ellen Hopkins and was so thrilled. She wasn't there as anything other than a participant at this conference. And she was so willing to sit down and visit with me, and I could tell her about my student and how powerful her book is for her. And I said, would it be really awkward if I asked you to sign just an autograph for her? And she said, heavens no. So she wrote this beautiful note to my student. And it's just, it's stuff like that, people like that I just, I just am so privileged to be able to have conversation with. I met so many of the, spoke with some of the key author or the keynote speakers that were there. One, Nick Stone, who is just knock your socks off with her writing, and the writing is so poignant, and the writing is so honest and truthful, and teaches us about things that are going on in the world that we need to know so that we can build empathy and we can experience feeling for others, And so anyway, this conference, I left there, was exhausted. Every day I'd get back to the hotel, and all I could do was put my hair up on my head, wash my face, and get in my pajamas and crochet or watch movies because
just
I was
to calm
so,
down
yes,
so you could sleep. Yeah,
because there was so much powerful information.
I love that so much.
So it was amazing. It was amazing. So anyway, I was grateful to go. Our principal sent us. We're very lucky that we were able to go because a lot of people that were there had to pay their own way, and they do it. They do because it's such a powerful place to be in, place to go, and to be recharged. So I was very thankful and very grateful to go do that with my department at my school.
I love to hear that so much. Yeah.
So
I've been to the NCTE conference twice. Kim Michelle, we talked about this last time. You and I went to San Francisco, and then you and I went to it in Vegas probably 10 years ago.
Yeah, because I was still over at Pineview.
Yeah. But with that in mind, you are reading a book.
Oh my gosh.
You said we want.
And I've thought about it. I've skimmed through it.
Yeah.
Past it because I'm trying to, what is the book that really I can put time and energy into, right? Because I want to. It's such a healing process for me. And at the same time, I can't spend time and energy in a book that's not going to be there because I don't have that time. I don't have it. Yeah.
Right. And that's it. I mean, with what we do with our profession and the amount of time that we read student work and spend working with students, our personal reading, I know you guys are the same way. It's like we have Christmas break and we have summer break and we jam in as much reading
Much as we can. Yep.
So, because I'm driving up north a lot to go be with my brother, and then there was all the hockey driving, I've really turned into an Audible listener because that's where I can get some things in. So anyway, I'd listened to a podcast with Glennon Doyle and Abby Wambach and her sister. And this author, Celeste Ng, was one of their guests, which I love all of their guests that are on there.
So that's Little Fires
And
Everywhere.
she did. She wrote Little Fires
What I Never
Everywhere.
Told You.
Yes, which I
And
love.
that.
Such
Yeah.
a powerful writer. And the thing that's so interesting about her is that she writes these books. She starts these stories years before what she's writing about becomes a very strong element or situation. And she finishes these stories, book gets published, it goes out, and what she's written about is first and foremost in our society or what we're dealing with in our culture and our social circles and stuff. So anyway, read this book or heard this podcast, and I didn't realize she had a new book out, so I was thrilled. So I finally grabbed it, and I actually just started listening to it yesterday, and I can't stop. This is her new
She's
book.
probably listening to it in one ear right now as
Yes.
she's on the podcast.
So I'm
So
stuttering
that's
a
how
lot.
gifted
our
she
students
is.
do that.
Stuttering a lot.
Well, I don't know if they're listening to me. They're definitely listening to what's in their ear.
I know. I'm
but
like, take your AirPod out.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have my phone, but it's on really, really low.
Right.
Well,
My
I don't
students do that
care.
all the time.
Like,
if I can
okay.
see your AirPods, they belong
Are you
to
gonna
me.
be fine?
So,
You're gonna
so
be
my
fine.
whole family's getting AirPods for Christmas.
Do they know that?
Yeah, because I
Well, they know that
confiscated
now.
them from all of my students.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, yeah.
Just gonna resync a few things. That's all we're gonna do.
No, I love my AirPods. I
Yeah.
love talking on the phone with my AirPods. I like cleaning my house, listening to music or a book, mowing the lawn, listening to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I can't listen and have a
I
conversation.
No.
can't do it either.
I
So
can't
I
either.
don't know how my students think they
I don't
can.
either.
No.
Well,
If, you,
no,
if you're
they
gonna steal
can't.
AirPods, you really have to
I'm
get
not
down
stealing.
to the bare bones settings. Because some of the races I did this summer, people keep losing earbuds all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, somebody found a pair, brought them home. Nobody claimed them, and then they get a note in the mail because they had a tracking device on them.
Oh yeah.
And the note said, "Do the right thing. Return my AirPods to me."
Oh my
1,000
gosh.
miles away.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah, because
They should respond, do the right thing, and
Write your name on
offer
them.
me something because I found it and rescued your AirPod.
That's right.
I could have
Well,
just
he-
stepped
he
on
gave
them.
them to his kid. His kid connected them to Bluetooth. Bluetooth was on the internet. It got dinged. It got pinged, and then they got a note a week later.
That's
Yeah.
so
That's
crazy.
cool.
Yeah.
That's
So- so
interesting.
yeah,
Did, they,
when-
send,
when
did
you
they
s-
do the right thing?
When you steal your students' AirPods, make sure you wipe all the information.
There's no
That's-
stealing.
That's what I'm
There's
getting
no
at.
stealing. I'm not a thief.
5-finger discount.
They know
Right,
that
I'm
I
a-
took them.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's so great. This book is also been picked as a Reese Witherspoon best
Yes.
Witherspoon.
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 So it's probably coming as a movie soon if she picked it up.
I
Right.
think that they've
Is
talked about
she
it.
the one that did Little Fires?
Yeah,
She
she
is.
did Little Fires
Mhm.
Everywhere.
Yeah. And what is the title of the
So
book?
the title of this book is Our Missing Hearts.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to read the synopsis because
Yeah.
I'll slaughter it.
You
There's no
won't,
way,
but you think you
it's
will, so read the
Okay,
synopsis.
so, and I have
No,
to
I
turn
think
it.
she will.
I will. It's true. It's true because sometimes I can't even get through my name without screwing that up.
You
Yes.
you are really enjoying our for real dinner conversation. So
Okay, so here we go. I have to turn it sideways and excuse me while I take my glasses off because we know how that works for me. Okay. 12-year-old Bird, yes, as in the flying, Gardner lives a quiet existence with his loving but broken father, a former linguist who now shelves books in a university library. Bird knows to not ask too many questions, stand out too much, or stray too far. For a decade, their lives have been governed by laws written to preserve, quote, American culture, end quote, in the wake of years of economic instability and violence.
So this is dystopian.
This is
Semi-dystopian.
So, I don't know.
Oh, that's what I read.
I don't know that I would call it that.
Oh, that's
I would call
interesting
this
then.
pretty much
Where we are right
where
now.
we are right now.
Okay.
To keep the peace and restore prosperity, the authorities are now allowed to relocate children of descendants, especially those of Asian origin, and libraries have been forced to remove books seen as unpatriotic.
Oh, so it's not dystopian.
Right.
Got it.
Including the work of Bird's mother, Margaret, a Chinese-American poet who left the family when he was 9 years old. Bird has grown up disavowing his mother and her poems. He doesn't know her work or what happened to her, and he knows he shouldn't wonder. But when he receives a mysterious letter containing only a cryptic drawing, he's pulled into a quest to find her. His journey will take him back to the many folk tales she poured into his head as a child, through the ranks of an underground network of librarians, into the lives of the children who have been taken, and finally to New York City, where a new act of defiance may be the beginning of much-needed change. Our Missing Hearts is an old story made new, of the way supposedly civilized communities can ignore the most searing injustice. It's a story about the power and limitations of art to create change, the lessons and legacies we pass on to our children, and how any of us can survive a broken world with our hearts intact.
Ooh.
The thing that's so powerful for me is that so many things that were talked about at this conference were stories, was about stories and how each one of us needs to have stories we can connect to, and how there's such limited stories for anyone outside of a white culture that are in our mainstream arenas, and how connection through literature is something so powerful that it saves lives all the time. We need to see books that represent us. We need to see writing that represents us, and we need to connect to people that we feel represented by. Which is why meeting these authors was such a powerful experience for me.
I can only imagine.
Why young adult lit is so powerful for me, and why our current culture of trying to eliminate things
Diversity.
that
trying to limit diversity
and limit what our students who may look a certain way but don't feel a certain way, how they don't have representation anywhere, and they don't have connection anywhere. And it's such a powerful space for me that this book, it's haunting to me.
Yeah.
I've had an eye twitch
right. Well, and I
most of
also,
the day about this book. So
I also feel like even if that all demographics need to be represented in film, commercials, TV,
right,
all forms of media,
Finally.
Books, finally, even if a certain demographic is a small percentage of the nation, it doesn't matter, and I don't think it has to be
not
proportionate,
just a nation,
right,
just
to the
place,
to the
any place
society, the culture,
of
the
that
city
area.
you live in. So it's a small population. There still should be somebody that represents that.
Yes.
And it's not really taught in the our history isn't taught that way even.
No.
And so I've heard a little bit of pushback about why does that have to happen when it's really such a small percentage?
Doesn't
because
matter.
all percentages doesn't matter.
All percentages
Everyone needs to
matter.
have a representative, and it's just like, Disney princesses don't. Not every person is represented as a Disney princess, right?
Right.
And so anyway, I was struggling with someone telling me that it shouldn't be as big a percentage as it is when it's such a small percentage of people that fit that demographic. We shouldn't have.
Well,
And so
I mean, that may be somewhat true because, and I think why young adult authors are leading the way on this diversity. And I have to believe that comes from their experience.
For sure.
and
From
for
that. And I think what's so important, this is, if nothing else is heard, this would be my one message. you can't determine for someone else what they would find to be unique and supporting of their life experience.
Absolutely.
You cannot determine that for someone else. That's why it's so dangerous for someone to determine for someone else what they have some kind of exposure to based on their life experience.
Right.
Because your life experience is only that one singular life experience.
Right.
That's it.
Yep.
So I mean, I really acknowledge the young adult authors, because I think they're really forging.
brave.
They're so brave. And I know that she in particular, Celeste Ng, is not a young adult necessarily. That's not her segue. But I have to say that the books that she writes are, young adults will find them incredibly inspiring. But that's what I would say to the adult world too. If you are not experiencing any young adult literature, you should, because there's just some amazing, powerful stories that could change your view
Well, and
of the world around you
I feel like
through a beautiful story.
I feel like What I Never Told You, is that what it's called?
This one?
The Things I Never Told You.
I'm
yeah, her
Celeste,
other
yeah.
one, yeah.
I love that. And
Even more than Little Fires Everywhere.
Absolutely,
I loved
yeah.
that book.
And it
yeah.
rang true to her own ethnicity as Chinese American.
Yeah,
Yep.
and not speaking truths,
Yeah.
right?
and-
Hiding.
Right.
Yeah.
And from the culture, they couldn't talk about these things, and what a ripple effect it had if they had been able to talk about these things, you know.
The difference.
Things could have been
difference.
very different.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it gave me some insight into her world. Even if that's not my world, it gave me insight into that, and I loved it, and I created more empathy.
Right.
And that's what you started this conversation around is.
Yeah. And I think really great authors, they can appreciate how you can have a unique storytelling point of view, and that will appeal to those who find themselves in that writing. But good authors will expand the vision so that even if that's not my experience of the world, I didn't experience that, but I can sure have empathy for this character in this story that is facing that. And I think that is a powerful revelation as well.
Well, you know, and to add to that, yes, it helps us to create empathy, and it helps us to create empathy for people that have those experiences, and it helps us to recognize how a couple of things, you know, wow, isn't my life a piece of cake? Or, wow, I can see where they were faced with those choices, and now I can see how they made that choice and it didn't work out so well. So maybe I don't need to make that choice if I were ever faced with that choice.
Well, and I think we sometimes judge, well, not sometimes, but we judge other people's choices because we haven't been in that situation.
Absolutely.
And so then reading about
frame
it,
of
we might
reference.
go, okay, I can understand why that was their choice now. Yeah, that
Even
rings
if you
to me all the time.
can't, what a great conversation about, okay, so what would have been the choices available to you, and what would have you chosen? And do you believe those same choices were available to the character in the book?
I love that.
Yeah.
Because, oh my gosh, especially in some of our homogenized culture here, where we see so many people that have a lot of choice and support. And so their decisions around anything are going to be different than somebody that has limited options or limited choice or limited support. Their decisions are going to be different.
Right.
And it's really hard to see how someone else would respond when you're only in what
when
you've
you
been.
score very low on the
ACEs
scale.
Yeah.
When you
Adversive-
score 1
yeah.
out of 10.
or 0. I'm a 0.
Yeah.
And on the adversive childhood experiences. So you score a 0 or lower than a 2.
Yep.
And so your choices to go to college or to whatever are different than somebody who scores 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And your choices, your coping strategies are different.
Yep.
And so a person that scores 0, 1, 2 have probably experienced better coping mechanisms, or they've probably learned better coping skills. And those that have scored a 5-6 are in survival.
Yeah.
And so their coping skills are not the same. And so that's what leads to the mortality rate.
Yeah.
So the higher your ACEs score, except for there are things that get you out of your score: resilience, intelligence, but most importantly, one solid adult.
Which, if we want to be honest, if we're not careful, even if we think we're a one solid adult, we don't necessarily, aren't necessarily a solid adult. We have to realize
a solid adult or
in their
someone
relationship.
for that person.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You know,
Yeah.
like sometimes we can think, oh yes, I'm a solid adult for this child of mine or whatever. Unless we are empathetic and we're open.
Oh yeah,
We just
then we
think
are.
we're not.
Yeah.
That's what
Right, because all you're
Okay.
doing is perpetuating
Yes.
the same belief
Yes.
system, right?
Yeah.
Without an opportunity for any kind of, could we expand the conversation outside of what we already believe to be true?
Right.
Just expand the conversation. That's all.
Just not because we're promoting it, but
No, just
this is
because
for
somebody else is actually living that.
Yep.
What if it taught nothing but empathy for someone who's in a different experience than what you're in? If nothing else, you can be appreciative that you're not in that experience. And then you might be able to have some empathy for the choices and decisions that somebody who's in that experience is making.
oh my gosh. We
Right.
could list off 100 books right here where we could all
Right.
Right, because
have
they're all the
examples
ones
of
that have
that.
been pulled from my library probably.
right.
Right.
Or are
100%.
being on a list to be pulled
Yep.
from the library. Yeah.
It is. That's what makes them scary.
We have Corey Lee said, truth is intellectually the experience of what one sees as reality, which is wholly shaped by environment, mores, family, and peers.
That's true. Holy.
Truth is exactly
well,
that.
You
Our
can't
truth
imagine
is our
what
truth.
you can't imagine.
You
Right.
don't know. This
Yeah.
is my favorite saying, and I've been saying this like ad nauseum for the last several months to my students and my sons. It's like, you don't know what you don't know
Yeah.
Yeah.
until you don't know it. And if you can't even be exposed to the knowledge of it, how do you develop humanity around it?
Yeah.
And that's in everything.
Yeah.
You know, if you have a limited set of experiences, that's all you know. So if you don't know what's out there for you, you're not going to set a goal for what that is.
Right.
So you'll stay limited if you have such a narrow set of. I know I have a friend who teaches at an alternative high school who says some of his students haven't been out of St. George.
Oh, I have students that have never been out of
amazed
St.
at
George.
how many haven't been out.
And so
more
how
than
would-
100-mile radius of St. George.
So their expectation is not to go out; it's to stay.
Yeah.
Because that's what
That's all
their experience. And
Yeah.
so, yeah. So,
was
the
just gonna
title
say-
of the book again.
yeah.
The title of the book is Our Missing Hearts by Celeste Ng, and her last name is spelled N-G.
I
And
thought it was Ing.
in case you're, not clear, that is not a Smith or a Peterson or a Jones name.
What are you saying, Jill?
I'm saying it will be just important just to read it so you get a perspective of someone else too.
One of the things that I love too is that, so I'm not going to obviously share any names, but I have I had a student in our school who was a minority student that moved in from out of state. And in one of their writings, they wrote about going on the bus and people spreading out on the bus, the school bus, so that there wouldn't be room for this person to sit there. One of the things that's so powerful about books, I think, and even conversation and shared experience, and I do a lot of conversation in my class, which is why we're so far behind. But what behind in one sense of the word.
No,
I was
they
just
are-
gonna
they're
say,
way
ahead
further
Behind
ahead.
of what?
Yeah,
they're
in
way
some
further
other
ahead.
senses. I honestly don't believe that that is done, spreading out so somebody doesn't sit there, is done because of the color of your skin or anything like that. I think it's done because they're uncomfortable and don't know what they would do or say. The person who's experiencing that, though, when that's a shared experience, I haven't had that experience because of race, but have I experienced something similar walking on the bus and knowing how it feels when you're looking at everybody and it doesn't feel like there's a seat and nobody's making room for you? Yes, that I can have a shared experience with. In that moment, I can feel what that must have felt like to you.
Right.
And I can have shared empathy with you in an experience in a way that I couldn't have had previously if I didn't know of that shared experience.
Exclusion.
And that's what conversation does. That's what books do. You know, Socrates talks about that an unexamined life, and Emerson does the same thing. An unexamined life is a life not worth living.
Right.
And Socrates says, know what you believe and why you believe it. And I think for a lot of people, we are adamant about what we believe. But if it comes right down to it, and we got to have an honest conversation beyond what we've been told about why we're supposed to believe that, but we could just have an honest conversation about the why behind believing it. Oh my gosh, we could be so much further along, but we don't see it really being
Important.
mentored by any people in positions of power on either side of the spectrum.
Right.
We don't even see it in school board meetings. We don't see it in local politics. We don't see it in half of the classrooms that we're teaching next to other teachers. We don't, we're not having those conversations necessarily.
About the why.
Yeah,
Right.
about the why. Why is it that I believe that to be true? And am I open that maybe it isn't? Or maybe
Not
it
usually.
is, but maybe there's another perspective. I don't have to give up my truth in order to be able to recognize and appreciate yours.
Oh, there's the thing that I think we need to teach the most.
There's that catchphrase right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
You don't have to give up your
Your
belief
truth.
No.
or your truth to recognize and appreciate that someone else has another truth.
And
And that's
I
okay.
am not asking you to give up yours to believe mine
Right.
either.
Right.
If we could just acknowledge and accept and respect
Yeah.
that there is not a cookie cutter, nor should there be a standard cookie cutter, because what in the Sam hell is that going to look like? Well, it's a scary idea that there would be a cookie cutter. And this is part of what the book
Talks about.
is talking about.
Yeah.
It is part. Sean, are you okay?
Bless you, Sean.
Nobody heard me except you. Nobody knows what I'm talking about except you.
God love you, Sean. Are you okay?
See, nobody heard that because my microphone was off.
Well,
But I
So,
sneezed.
we
and I
just
feel
wanted
better.
to send blessings.
We did.
And we wanted to make
Tried to
sure
be
the
quiet.
spirits did not
Tried to
get
cover
into your
myself.
soul.
Oh, God,
Right.
Thank
That's why we say thank God. You
heaven
know that.
bound, here I come.
That's exactly
Right.
why they say bless you.
So, Kim Michelle, you mentioned that you are going through some moral dilemmas with your students, or having your students
Yeah.
look at moral dilemmas.
Yeah, so they do. We've been working on that. Who you are is not how you identify with social media. It's not how you identify necessarily with culture and family history. All of those things can affect how you choose to view yourself in the world. But truly, your authentic self is who you are at the core of you. And that's usually a value-based kind of driven experience. What are those 4 or 5 key core values that you know to be true of you, even when you don't operate from those? Because you won't. You'll have plenty of times in life where the immediacy of gratification or the elimination of a potential consequence will choose you to make a decision that feels like you're going to get the benefit in the moment,
Right.
even if it's out of alignment with who you know
Oh.
yourself to be
Well,
at your core.
Yeah, I just talked today about how our personality traits get in the way of
Yeah.
some of our goals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Holy
Yeah.
cow.
Exactly. So we've been talking about that. Personality traits is one of those identifiers that are on the outside of you that it can affect your vision of your self-identity, but your self-identity is really internal.
Yeah.
Or hopefully. And so part of that they're going to do tomorrow, right?
Ta-da.
All of my students who I'm sure are listening, I'm sure that's the fan base you see out there. They will then be, so they've been working about creating their best self imagery and character. And they're going to have an opportunity to be faced with some moral dilemmas or ethical dilemmas, and then not even how would you respond, because I think that can feel like pressure, but how would your best self respond
Yeah.
in this situation?
I like that separation.
Yeah. And so they're going to have a chance to do that. So I thought, well, it might be fun for us to take a little bit of a look at a moral or ethical dilemmas and what is it that we might do. And this is exactly the type of conversation, really, honestly. When we chose to do a Great Day to Talk, it was taking the conversations that we're having and see if you might not enjoy being a part of the conversation. So these are definitely these are the exact same things
Core.
like we would kind of talk about.
These are core dinner-based
So
conversations.
do you
Yeah.
differentiate in your classroom between moral and ethical?
Well, I think there is a distinction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But they're still going to be different for each person.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the conversation is so much of moral is tied to a Puritan
Right and wrong.
concept, yes, of right, wrong, good, bad. And that's why I love the dilemma, because it reinforces that there is not a good, bad, right, wrong, that there isn't a true answer, which for a lot of kids and even adults is a really difficult concept because all they want is to know what is the right answer.
What's the right thing to do? What's the right answer?
What's the right answer? Just tell me what the right answer is, and then
tell
I'll
me
do
what to
it.
do.
I'll write it. Tell me the words I should say in this sentence, and I'll write them here.
Yeah.
But I won't do that. I'll just say, you know what? I created a parenthesis around this sentence because to me, this sentence could use improvement. Well, what should I say? I don't know. Focus on the sentence, and you tell me how you think the sentence might be better.
Right.
And that's kind of how I feel about
That makes
moral and
that's
ethical
really a great
dilemmas.
way
Do
to
you
talk
talk
that.
about ethics as universal principles for everyone, or do you talk about ethics as the what the law says,
Well,
and morals what your individual right and wrong is?
But wait.
Yeah.
But do you talk about morals as in what a group of people determine is a moral?
Well, I think that's where morals and ethics can become clouded. It used to be more distinguished because I think you would say that laws, for example, are not morality based. They are ethically based, right? But more and more, I don't think that you're seeing a distinction between those kind of two separate
things.
places. Yeah. So I think that you can have moral standards that are established. However, the moral dilemma or even the ethical dilemma isn't for anybody else to say to you that's a moral or ethical dilemma. It really is within your own system,
Your own feelings.
within your own authentic beingness. Is this a dilemma for you? But I really work to move away from good, bad, right, wrong.
Right judgment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and into the place of most of the world shows up in gray.
Right.
If you ask kids, should you steal? Then all of them, 100% would say, even those who are stealing, would say, no, you should not steal. If you ask, should any child go to bed hungry at night? Then almost all of them would say, no child should go to bed hungry at night. So if I don't have any food and I'm the provider for my family and I don't have any food to feed my family, and so when the bakery closes, I go in the back door that's left open and take bread to feed my family, then what? And for most of them, they're like, oh, blah, 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 because everything in their world should
contradiction.
be good, bad, right, wrong.
Black, white.
Right.
And
But life shows up in the gray.
well,
Right.
so I teach Kohlberg's moral dilemma in Lawrence Kohlberg said that we experience moral decision making in stages, and those stages follow different ages, and then the final stage is universal principles for everyone. So should the
If I
moral
would choose it for me, would I choose it for you?
yeah, yeah. And if I need to steal medicine to save my wife, I should, because everyone should have the right to live. So that's that last stage.
Yeah.
At the beginning, it's different. Anyway, we go through that. And so they have to learn that, it's not black and white. You shouldn't steal.
Yeah.
Until there's, okay, under what circumstances. And so what do you have a moral dilemma for us?
I do. So these are not the ones that I'm presenting to my students. And just so that you're aware, theirs are very school-ish kind of,
Tied around
somebody's
their
being
environment,
bullied
culture.
in the classroom. And as your best self, what choice or decision would
Right.
you make in that situation? Now, I also know that all of them would probably say, oh, yeah, I would
For sure.
I would for sure do that. But then they're also asked, what are the costs and potential benefits from making that choice or decision, so that they are at least thinking that process through, right? So here is one. So you go out with your husband for dinner at a new restaurant you have not frequented before. It is in a part of town you rarely visit. You're shocked to see that your friend's spouse is having dinner with a very young, attractive person. From the way they are behaving, it is obvious they are more than friends. The couple finish their meal and leave without seeing you. They behave very affectionately on their way out the door. What do you do?
I talk to that person and I say, okay, you get to tell your spouse before I do.
So if they did not tell their spouse, then you would tell the spouse.
I think I would.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that a lot of times we don't tell when we should. So I'm married to an identical twin, as you know, and Riley and I lived here a couple of years before his identical twin and wife moved here. And Rick and his wife would go to the mall or go out to dinner, and people were looking. People looked at him very sideways, but no one
said anything.
Nobody called me. And it wasn't until I was dropping off one of my daughters to dance, and the counter's like, "So how are you doing?" I'm like, "We're great. Now, did you guys get divorced?" And I'm all, "No." And she went, "Oh." And I was like, "Did you see my husband's twin?"
Oh,
And most people didn't know that he
there
was a twin. Yeah. But it was, nobody said anything to me. And I've just, over the years, are like, the spouse that's being cheated on is always the last to know.
Yeah.
But why is that? Why, and depending on how close we are to the friend, like under what circumstance do we
Sure.
get involved?
Right.
But we should maybe.
Look at me. I'm like, this is what I would do. This is right. Like,
Well,
that's
and
not good.
I mean, it would have to.
I obviously didn't think through any
No,
of the different
but
scenarios.
you
No,
may.
but
You may.
Yeah.
I think.
I don't,
your
there's not a right or
personality may.
wrong.
No.
That's the thing. It just is, there are costs and benefits to each choice and decision you would make.
Yeah.
So as you weigh those, part of that is, okay, I would want to tell the friend, and I'm like you, I would probably tell the spouse.
I would
Hey,
make
I
sure
saw
I
you,
saw them.
And
that they saw me.
It made me feel uncomfortable, which means it probably would make your wife feel uncomfortable unless she's totally aware. So if you don't make her aware, then I'm probably going to feel like I have to say
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Even though his response may be, it's just really none of your business, which could be true too. But the other thing is, I think if he didn't say anything and I'm like, okay, now I'm going to speak to my friend, I probably need to preface that conversation with, would you want to know?
Oh my
Right.
God, yes.
What do you think, Sean?
I think you just go up to him and have a super casual, hey, how's it going? How you been? And then have like maybe 30 seconds of small talk.
30 seconds of silence.
Not even silence, no, just small
Wait
talk.
for them to introduce
like
you.
nothing's wrong. Just like, hey, how you doing? And if he introduces or if he doesn't,
Right.
but it's like, I'm here.
Make a point.
I see
know.
you. I see you were here. I'm not going to embarrass you now. And it's going to be up to them to contact you to be
Yeah.
like, hey, okay, let's. And then you have the discussion. But I think ruining dinner, come on.
No.
I mean, I don't want to be crying over creme brulee.
No, now remember.
Oh, no, I love creme brulee.
Remember, in this situation, they've left without
They've left
seeing
without
you.
seeing you.
They're already gone. So
Yeah.
any conversation you would be having, it would be long after the fact. But I also know that sometimes the other person doesn't want to know. And so,
Yeah.
I think
Well,
I get to ask, would you want to know? If I knew something, would you want to know it?
that's
To
an
the two of
interesting
you,
answer.
I would say yes.
Yes.
But
See, if I
Scott,
know
honey,
my
I know that
people-
would never be you because I would take you out.
Yeah. You know, I think I always think it's better to have the information to make educated decisions.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm telling you, having been in an experience where some
That was the
stuff
case.
came out,
Uh-huh.
I'm telling you, there's nothing worse than not knowing.
Mm-hmm.
At least for me, nothing worse than not knowing, because then the knowing becomes absolutely mortifying
Yeah.
because you're the last one to know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think the most important part of this is what you do or don't do. Part of it is what I wouldn't do is talk to anybody else
Exactly.
about
Yeah.
the situation.
Exactly.
Um,
And in Kohlberg's, like I was mentioning, Lawrence Kohlberg's stages.
I'd love to sit down and talk
Yeah.
to you about that.
Yeah. So he doesn't care if you say yes, still the medicine, no, still the medicine. He cares about why.
the justification.
Yeah. And so the first stage of why they say yes or no is one reason, and the second is a different reason, and the third is a different reason. It's interesting. So kids are very black and white. So the first stage
Yeah.
is younger kids, and they're like, no, you can't still,
Right.
because stealing is bad.
Because you're
Yes.
teaching.
Right.
Still.
Or-
And they're limited life experience, really.
Or yes, you can still, because you need to steal the medicine to save your wife.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. And then the second is no, you can't steal because you don't want to be in trouble.
Right.
And
External motivation.
Yes, you need to steal because you don't want your wife mad at you that you didn't steal.
Do what could have been done.
Right. And then the third is yes, you steal because everyone has the right to life.
Yep.
Or no, you don't steal because everyone has the right to charge however much they want for the medicine. So it's a really layers of
Yeah.
but it's
Within
not
those
about
three.
yes or no. It's about why.
What is
Yeah.
the specifics behind
And
it?
so I think you could even use that in your moral dilemma discussion. is,
Sure.
okay, so do you call the person you busted and say, hey, I saw you at a restaurant with so-and-so. You need to tell your wife before I do, or your husband before I do. Why? Why are you doing that?
I know why I would do it. Do you know why you would do it?
If I was a good friend to the person that didn't know, I feel like it was my friendly obligation.
It was
maybe
your duty as
Yeah.
a friend, as
To-
someone that you
yeah,
love.
I think
person
my
you love.
why would be just because someone who's invested like that has a right to the information. What they choose to do
Do
with
it.
that,
Yeah.
that's
Exactly.
totally that's totally with
not
them.
mine.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's another thing is it's so easy for all of us to say, "Oh my gosh, if that happened to me, I would leave in a second. Would you? Because it's a lot to leave. If you
It's-
have kids, you have homes, you have this, you have that.
Right.
So I always look at, and I didn't always, now that I'm older.
Right.
And, but now I get why some people stay and work through that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. When probably 20 years ago, I'd
It
have
would
said,
be-
I'm out.
Yeah. You better know it.
Yeah, I am out. Or I can't believe they stayed.
Yeah.
And there's so many
Well,
reasons.
see, and that's that piece is a separate moral judgment. Do you judge someone based on their own decision?
if that's no.
To me, that's a whole separate
Right.
moral
And
dilemma.
That is a
ethical
whole separate moral dilemma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And moral,
And
is
could
that
you
the
stay
right
friends
word?
with someone who
Right.
knowingly,
Stayed.
I mean, that, right? Especially when they're taking a stand around that, I'm going to stay here. But then in other areas of their life, they totally do the opposite of what that would be, right? Like they draw a clear line and nope, you're out of my life now because of this happened, but they're choosing to stay over here. That's why we're complicated. I talk to my students about this all the time. We are complicated creatures. And
But-
knowing you is the essence of being able to get through some of that complication.
And I mean, our time's up, but I think it just spins right back to why we read books.
Connections.
Yes.
To have
To-
ourself reflected
because
somewhere.
self-reflection, but also to experience others' experiences that maybe we won't.
Yep.
And their decisions. And so I hope our podcast today made you go,
And as you read the book, you go,
Yeah. Please.
Yeah.
And friends,
I'm getting it tonight.
Get it.
Yep.
Get it from our local book bungalow. Get it from wherever you get your books, but get it. And
Yeah.
as it starts to haunt you like it's haunting me, you know, it's there's so
It's
much
good.
to think
Yeah,
about.
we'll
so much
definitely
to
have
talk
a
I'm
about.
always
follow-up
a different
conversation on
person.
that.
I'm always in a
Yeah.
different frame of thinking after every book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank
you so
you.
much. Thank you, my dear friends.
Thank
I
you.
love
So
you
happy
so
to be back
much.
together. Yay.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon. Have
Happy
a great
week.
night.
Happy week.
Thanks for listening to It's a Great Day to Talk.
Be sure to follow and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform.
And until next week,
Get out there and talk.
This has been a production from a podcast studio.